Howard government introduced the ban on marriage, the support for marriage equality was only at 30%. Right now, it has risen to be up to 70%. One of the institutions that took on the battle for marriage equality early on, just after the ban was introduced, was the National Union of Students. Our next speaker is Jess McLeod. She's the Women's Officer for the National Union of Students. So please make her welcome.
Hi everyone, so great to see so many people out here today. I wanted to talk a little bit about this campaign over the last 11 years. It's actually been a long campaign and a long fight. And Sam just talked about when the ban was first brought in place, that there was only a minority of people who supported marriage equality. And actually, it's the hard work of grassroots activists who've been organised over many years, who stood out in the rain and cold and taken a stand, and over that time we've actually made a difference. The National Union of Students has been part of this campaign from very early on, including the National Queer Department, and so much has changed. I actually think if this issue was put to a popular vote, a plebiscite in Australia today, then it would be passed. We would have marriage equality. Like in Ireland, where this was recently put to a referendum, and it was actually the votes of the working class that carried it overwhelmingly over the line. It was in the working class areas that the vast majority of people voted for civil rights. And there's a real momentum here. But it's very clear that we need to keep organising and we need to keep fighting, because many of our politicians are not like the masses of people. They are bigoted and or they are self-serving. And that's why I wanted to actually talk a little bit about the recent Labor Party conference. And don't get me wrong, I feel like I need to preface this by saying I would never ever vote for the Liberal Party. They consciously and openly rule for the super wealthy, and as part of the National Union of Students, we've been running a campaign against the $100,000 university degrees that they've been trying to implement. We've been demanding a fully funded public education system, because having access to education for everyone is a right and not a privilege. That being said, the reason I want to raise the Labor Party conference is because I think the decisions that were made at the last conference were an insult and an absolute disgrace. The Labor Party know full well that the majority of people support marriage equality, and what the Labor Party have done is essentially hold everyone who supports civil rights hostage. They said, if you vote for us, yes, we'll finally grant equality. So that's what I mean by holding us hostage. And then they said, essentially, if we don't vote for them, then they are not going to bind their politicians to vote for equality until 2019. We've already waited enough years for this. And by doing this, by not actually having a binding vote, by saying that their politicians can vote according to their so-called conscience, they've actually lowered the bar. They've lowered expectations, and they've gone along with the conservative argument that when it comes to civil rights, it's somehow a question of conscience. And make no mistake, after the historic events in Ireland and in the USA, there's a real momentum that exists. And the Labor Party, I think, have squandered that. And not just that, they haven't just squandered it, they've tried to hold it up and say that this is something that we should be grateful for, or something that we should celebrate. So keeping all of that in mind, I actually think that what we do have is an incredible strength in terms of the people who want to come out on a regular basis and stand up and fight. We need to stand strong, we need to keep organising, we need to call for action and stand in solidarity with one another. And actually with other groups who've been attacked time and time again, who've had their rights taken away from them time and time again. Which brings me to another one of the disgraces of the Labor Party conference, the vote turn back policy, where they're going to tow refugee votes back to where they came from. And I think that that's a disgrace in itself, but people should know that there are many queer refugees who are fleeing persecution on those boats too. And when vulnerable people come here to escape persecution and in hope of a better life, we should welcome them. But there's a greater point here too. It's one of solidarity. If the government can divide us, if they can distract us, if they can whip up fear, and if they can take away one group of people's rights, then it puts everyone else in a weaker position to stand up and fight for their rights too. And this is actually what they did when they first brought in the ban on marriage equality. They used the most bigoted, homophobic, disgusting and outlandish arguments to justify it. So I think we need to reject that kind of politics. We need to reject the cesspool that passes for politics in Australia today, and we need to demand more. And it's through the collective action, taking to the streets, raising our voices, standing together with one another, that we've hit back against bigotry and against homophobia and transphobia. And so that's what we need to keep doing. Well done to everyone for coming out today. Keep up the fight. We are going to win this, and we're actually going to win more if we keep fighting.
Thank you, Jess. There has been a lot of calls going around for a conscience vote, and that's the Labor Party position. They have a conscience vote from their own party. However, we in Equal Love, we have a long-standing position that we want Labor to bind their vote. They should not allow their politicians the freedom to vote against marriage equality, that they should not have the freedom to allow their politicians to vote for bigotry, put it like that. Now, the other thing Jess mentioned was that Tony Abbott wants a plebiscite. Now, first of all, something we've got to understand about a plebiscite is it's not actually binding on the Parliament. It's not actually the same thing as a referendum. So we could all have a big plebiscite and we could vote for what we want, but then the government doesn't necessarily have to abide by what we want. The second thing with the plebiscite is it's a delaying tactic. Oh, hang on. The Prime Minister wants to clarify. Okay.
Bloody women! It takes a real man to explain these things. I'm your PM. G'day, Team Australia. And queer people. Yeah. Look, my party has called for a plebiscite. It takes a man to tell you what a plebiscite is. A plebiscite is a type of bug that grows and infests Tanya Plebiscite's hair. And once we've got one of those, we can have a national referendum where all the public votes and us pollies don't have to take any notice of it. Yeah, perfect! But Labor's gone one better. They've asked for a conscience vote for both parties. Now we're talking a conscience vote for politicians. That means that most of the voting slips are going to come back blank. Yeah, because most of us politicians have no conscience. So that makes it's a no conscience vote. But Labor have gone one better still. They've said they're going to introduce a binded vote. Yeah, a binding vote on gay marriage in 2519. Yippee! Even better. But Labor now have an even better idea. As well as a conscience vote for pollies who have no conscience and a binded vote in 25 for 19, they're prepared to introduce queer marriage. In only 100 days, if you vote for them. Oh, yeah. Once they get elected, not bloody likely. But don't worry, you don't have to vote for them, because I've got the best plan of all. Yep, Team Australia, I'm your PM and I'm going to save the day. My government will infest the entire country with blood-sucking plebiscites, which will only be eradicated once I'm elected. And if elected, I promise to introduce gay marriage, binded voting in the year 4,000 billion. Woo! How about that? And every married couple will receive, will throw in a free nuclear bunker and an oxygen tank. Team Australia! Vote for me! Love you all, and here is my budget stimulus package, which I always share. My baloney!
That was Baloney Abbott. Actually, Baloney Abbott is actually my girlfriend, Helen Child, local comedian. Now, we shouldn't be downhearted by all this talk of conscience votes and plebiscites, because we are really, really powerful. We're the people, and we can hold any government to account. We have put this much pressure on the government so far that they've already had to, change a whole bunch of laws. The Labor Party has already had to change its position. They used to be against marriage equality, but our movement got them to change their position. And we're going to force the government to bring in marriage equality, because we are powerful. Everyone throw your rainbow fist in the air. We're going to win this campaign one way or another. We have a chat. Put the bill. Pass the bill. Put the bill.
Pass the bill.
Put the bill.
Pass the bill.
Put the bill.
Pass the bill.
Now, we've had a really wonderful sound guy do the sounds for us today. His name's Andrew. He's a really good guy. He's got a really good sound system. But he actually, we're going to pay him. So we're going to ask for a donation. So maybe if you guys could take around this bucket, we need to pay the sound guy. So if you just put some money in the donation bucket.
Hey, what's that? Can I get my wallet out? That's in my bag. So we just under my second coat.
Alright.
Thanks.
While you're digging deep, and remember the notes make less noise than coins, I'd like to introduce our next speaker. It is Lynn McLaren, MLC for the Greens.
Well, good afternoon, Perth. Can I say, first of all, I want to acknowledge the Noongar people on whose land we stand, and I noticed there's a few Wajuts around. If they're still here, I pay my respects to you and your elders. Look, how many people here are in a loving relationship with someone of the same sex? How many people here are actually married to that person? All right. How many people here have been to these rallies before? Good on you. I want to thank you for coming to these rallies, because actually you are making a big difference. Because I've been going to these rallies for at least, 10 years. I've been going to these rallies. I've been speaking at these rallies for the last 6 years, and the numbers have just really exploded. But beyond the numbers, what's really happened is that your stories about your relationships and why it matters to you are actually making a difference to politicians. So we used to have, we keep a tally, and I was going to give you a political speech, but may I just commend the previous speakers?
including Helen, who is a great comedian, about their analysis of the political paradigm before us. Jane was spot on about trans rights. Miranda was very articulate about all the ways that the Abbott government is tearing down your rights. And every single speaker who has come up here has told you a piece of the story, how difficult it is in the Parliament to fight for the rights of anybody who isn't a white, Anglo-Saxon, heterosexual. It ain't easy. But today, I want to tell you not my political speech, because what I've done is I've posted that on my Facebook page, and that will tell you the numbers about the vote this week, and it'll give you a link to the Australians for Marriage Equality website so that you can actually act today to make a difference and to change the vote coming up this week. Because right now, I can tell you quite quickly, the numbers are not looking good. There are 9 votes down in the lower house, and there are 2 votes missing in the Senate. And I can tell you that from Western Australia, your elected members are letting you down and me down big time. There are 4 who are currently not declared, and they are Julie Bishop, Ken Wyatt, Melissa Price, and can anybody name the other guy? Christian Porter. Now those 4 people are now your target for lobbying this afternoon, because they are either undeclared or they have said they haven't decided yet. So if they haven't decided yet, there's that opportunity for you to tell your story. And the reason I know it makes a difference is because the member who represents Brand, who is an ALP member, used to be on the other side of the ledger. But he now supports marriage equality thanks to your lobbying, so good on you. So since I'm not going to give you my political speech, and since you're all going to like my Facebook page, and there are 4,500 of you here that are on this Facebook page, I'd like my numbers to go up by that today. Thank you very much. You will be doing that because I'm going to save you that boring thing. What I'm going to tell you is why marriage equality matters to me. I am a lesbian. Thank you. I don't expect to be cheered for being a lesbian, but that's cool. I am a lesbian, and for the last 30-some years, I have made Australia my home. I am deeply invested in it. I am deeply attached to Australia. I consider this my sense of place on the planet. I have a real deep sense of belonging here. I have a family here. I recognize here in your faces people who I have known for those 30 years, who I hold dear in my heart. Today, I do not have the same rights of my relationship recognition as every other 36 members of the elected parliament in Western Australia. Myself and one other colleague who is a same-sex attracted person have less rights, have less status, have less recognition. Now that is not good enough. What marriage equality means to me is a sense of belonging. It means that, like my brother and like my sister, who are both heterosexual, I can have the recognition in my family of my relationship. That if I choose to have